Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Leslie Torres Rodriguez, Superintendent of Hartford Public Schools. We care deeply about our students and about all of you, our families and our partners, and we have missed seeing all of you in our schools. As the school year comes to a close, I want to deeply thank you for supporting the transition to distance learning and for all of your efforts to keep your student engaged. We know that this has been an extremely challenging time for all of us, and I am deeply, deeply grateful for your partnership. Thank you also for joining me this evening for updates about the end of the school year, summer learning opportunities, and initial thinking that we've had for plans for the fall, which we're calling Return to Learn. I have some helpers here that are going to help me with the presentation. Thank you, John. I'm going to first begin with some of the end of year updates. Since we started distance learning on March 30th, our teachers, our administrators, our community-based partners, and of course, with your support, we have accomplished a great deal in such a short period of time. And I wanted to share with you some of those. So as of last week, we have provided nearly 1 million meals to students across the city. We have distributed about 11,000 devices. We've mailed over 10,000 learning packets to families that elected to have tech-free materials. And our staff has been hard at work and managed to connect with 99% of our families during our closure. Over 80% of our students were active in distance learning each week on our Google platform, Google Classroom platform, and we were committed to caring and connecting with our families and with our students. And so we wanted to make sure that we were communicating on a regular basis. So we did deliver 695 communications to families, staff, and partners relating to COVID and our response to COVID. Those communications started late January. And, the messages included website posts, social media posts, newsletters, press conferences, interviews, emails, live stream town halls, you name it. We were trying to be very intentional about keeping the lines of communication open and sharing information with you as soon as possible. So that's where we were, and that's some of the things that we have been able to accomplish since the closure of schools. With regard to summer learning, things are going to look different this year for summer. We know that we want to keep our students engaged during the summer, and so we are going to be offering a variety of summer school programs to students across all of our grades. These are virtual offerings. As you might already know, we are allowing our students that are returning to Hartford Public Schools to continue to borrow our electronic device. And so they will be able to have access to these virtual offerings. For example, for students in K through 8th, we will provide a virtual summer opportunity. This is optional, but registration is going to be required to access the academic support aspect of the program. For this program, students will be engaged in reading, writing, and social emotional learning, and they're going to receive a daily calendar of activities with live academic support and also recognition of their work. We strongly encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity. We understand that our students, and perhaps you as a parent and caregiver, might need a break from a virtual platform or distance learning. I know that, and I encourage you to take a break, but don't let that break last for too long. Encourage your student to engage in these virtual opportunities. For students in all grades, we are going to launch a superintendent's reading challenge. I love to read, and we know how important it is to continue to make sure that our students continue reading. And so I want to encourage everyone to read for at least 20 minutes, 5 days per week, and to log their reading on an online form. We're going to send out that information. And then students are going to be recognized and celebrated for reaching their specific reading goals. So stay tuned for more information about the reading challenge. For our younger learners in grades K through 3, some of them will participate in what is known as the Early Start program, which we offer every summer. This is a program for students that will be identified and selected for this program. And you should be receiving a letter in the mail. This program will offer reading, writing, math, and social emotional learning. And we do need students who receive the letter in the mail to please register by June 22nd. And then lastly, for our older students, our high schoolers, we remain committed to making sure that students stay on track to graduate on time. And so we are going to provide a free virtual summer credit recovery program to support students in grades 9 through 12 to recover any potential course credit that they lost during the regular academic year. So students that are interested in participating in this credit recovery, they have to register by June 12th. That's this week. More information about this program has already been provided to our families, but do encourage, if you do have a high schooler that has missed credit, to please consider recovering the credit so that they can stay on track to graduate on time. On the screen here, you see that this is an image that is also actually on our website. I know that, I just shared a lot of different details about the different components of summer programming. So you're always welcome to visit our website and see all of the specific details, the grade levels, the actual experiences that students are going to have in each of the programs, and of course, the registration information. All of these programs, again, are free for students, and they're virtual as well. We, before I talk about the fall, we are going to continue to offer our meal offerings throughout the summer. That's actually going to be offered all the way through mid-August as well. So just wanted to make sure that you all knew that meal distribution will continue. With regard to our plans for next school year, for the fall, just like you, we too are thinking a lot about what that return is going to look like. What we all know is that the safety of our students and our staff remains our highest priority. And so if health and government officials decide that we can return in the fall, it certainly will require that there's a tremendous amount of planning and preparation so that we can ensure that there's a safe environment for everyone. And while no official guidance has been provided by the State Department of Education, there have been ideas that are being discussed about what next year could potentially look like. And so some ideas discussed are continuing distance learning or blended learning, with some students alternating the days that they come to school and days that they stay at home. For example, there are some safety measures that are being discussed, and some include reducing the amount of students in each classroom. So reducing class size, reducing the number of students that are able to travel on a bus, requiring that students and staff wear masks, that we take daily temperature checks and other measures. So these are all things that are being discussed at the moment. Um, we know that the last months have been um, significantly challenging. And we also know that we're going to have to be mindful of the social and emotional health of not only our students, but also our staff. And we are planning for that as well. Whatever school looks like next year, whatever the structure, we know that we are going to be paying a lot of attention to how we support our students and staff in terms of their social and emotional health. And as we think about next year and the program design and the experience and safety measures, we need you and we need your input. We want to make sure that we have your voice and your thinking as we're making decisions that serve the needs of all of our students and our families. And so tomorrow we are going to be sending you information about a survey about distance learning, about what your suggestions are, what your concerns are for returning to school next year. So please be sure to respond to the survey, make your voice be heard, and help us inform our thinking about what next year could look like. One thing that I'll also remind you of is that once we are able to gather as many responses as possible to the survey, we're going to be able to share that information. And so we are going to provide opportunity throughout the summer to share what it is that your voices were telling us about next year, about what's on your mind. The survey is going to be also going to our staff. We want to make sure we also hear from our teachers and from our staff about what their concerns and what their ideas are. We've surveyed students, so we want to hear as many different voices as possible. We're gonna now go to some questions, and before we go to the live questions, I do want to review some of the questions that came in through our Welcome Center. One of the questions is, how will the district help students recover the loss when they get back to school in the fall? We acknowledge that there has been loss. We know that the current distance learning structure does not replace what happens in the classroom. We know that learning is a very social process, and that there's power in not only students interacting with the teacher, the instructor, students interacting with the content, what they're learning, the material, but students also interacting with one another and with their peers. And so we know that there has been an impact on academic progress. And so for us, we want to determine the degree of learning loss. And in order to do that, we are going to focus on having some diagnostic assessments when we start the school year. The assessments will help us identify the level of supports that are needed for students. So, we'll have to think about what the instructional time is going to look like. Is it that it's going to require that some students participate in extended day programs? Perhaps we have to extend the year for some students. Perhaps we have to do intentional and intensive tutoring for some of our students. We know that we're going to have to do more that we were doing before. And so in order to design for that, we have to do the diagnostic assessments to see how our students are doing when they get back to us, and where are the gaps, and how deep and how wide are those gaps. Another question is about student retention. The district did not retain any students. What will schools do for students who struggle in the next year? That is correct. We made a decision to not keep students back, to not hold students or retain students in grades pre-K through eighth. And I want to make sure that everyone understands that that decision was about equity. And when we talk about equity, equity means that we have to provide not only the resources, but we have to create the conditions so that we are able to meet the needs of all of our students. And that means that some students are going to require more support, more resources than others. And so when we went to distance learning, we knew that some students were not going to be able to access distance learning because they did not have an electronic device, or they didn't have an electronic device. Perhaps students didn't have an opportunity to access because they didn't have the supportive structures that were necessary. So for us, we could not punish, if you will, a student for not having the access. And so that means that we did not retain students in pre-K 8. So we have to implement a what is called a support system on different levels, because we know some students are going to need more supports than others. So this process is going to identify students who are not making progress toward the grade level targets. And so we are going to, based on that assessment that I talked about, that diagnostic assessment, we're going to design a plan for students so that there are short-term goals and then longer-term goals for the student. And so the intervention strategies will have to be identified, and then we're going to have to implement, right? We're going to have to put those in place to support the students, and then we're going to continue to assess whether or not the student is improving and whether or not it's helping the student. So that's a process that's going to happen throughout the entire year for our students. Another question is about the Welcome Center and the Office of Enrollment, and whether or not they're open and how those appointments are being handled. Yes, the Welcome Center, as well as the Office of Enrollment and School Choice, they are available. They're operating remotely, and staff can be reached by phone and by email Monday through Friday, 8 in the morning to 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And just as a reminder, our Welcome Center phone number is 860-695-8400. And then our Office of Enrollment and School Choice can be reached at 860-695-8876. Know that you can also, if you're registering, you can register online by visiting our hartfordschools.org /registration site. The other questions that came into the Welcome Center are specific to safety as it relates to coronavirus in the fall. One question is, how will staff and students be kept safe if coronavirus returns in the fall? We will continue to follow the guidance from the Department of Education, the Department of Health, our local and state health officials. Our facilities staff have been working around the clock to make sure that our facilities are deep cleaned. Our bus drivers will follow cleaning and hygiene protocols that are recommended by the Center for Disease Control. Our staff and students will be encouraged to also practice good hygiene by washing their hands and using hand sanitizers on a regular basis. Masks will be provided to students and staff who might need them. And we will also follow guidance on how to screen our staff and our students for illness, as well as testing and contact tracing for anyone who tests positive for coronavirus. So there's a lot of guidance that is out there, and all of those are going to inform how we operate in the fall. And the other question is also related to safety, health and safety. This was a question actually that did not come in through the Welcome Center, but it was a question that was raised at the Spanish speaking, our town hall that was in Spanish. And it is, my child is autistic and can't wear a mask for more than 5 minutes. How is that going to work? And that is a great, great question. And we know that the recent guidance does suggest that we will need to provide individualized modifications for students and actually for staff as well. We know that some students and potentially some staff might have specific medical needs that might make it very hard for them to keep a mask on for a certain amount of time. And so it's going to require that we look at those cases, one by one, and determine the best way to support students and staff while keeping them and everyone else safe as well. So those are the questions that came into us. And in the previous town hall, I'm going to just pause for a minute to see if there are any other additional questions. I don't see any questions that are coming in. So again, I want to thank you for tuning in with us, for your partnership and commitment. I also encourage you to encourage your child to take advantage of these virtual opportunities throughout the summer. We want to make sure that students continue to engage in these enrichment opportunities, to join my superintendent's reading challenge. And please be on the lookout for the survey that is going to go out tomorrow, so that you can share your ideas, your thinking, your concerns with us about next year. And we look forward to continuing to communicate with you throughout the summer about our plans for next year. I thank you, and I wish you a healthy and safe summer, and hope to see you again in the fall. Depending on what that looks like, know that we remain committed to making sure that our beautiful and capable students succeed. Thank you.